Yeah.
Yeah, so this is part of like why this topic is in my head because it's like one of my mentors recommended to me, like if you're trying to determine the pricing for your offer, then you should know, and I think Jeremy, you mentioned this before too, like you should know what it costs you to run the offer. So like what are expenses that you have to pay for in order to deliver the offer?
Sure.
But when my partner and I were having this conversation of like, like softwares we use, whether it's like an
Riverside.
AI or the editing software is like, is that an expense or is that an overhead cost? So the example that he used was like, you wouldn't charge your clients for like renting your office space. Like you probably wouldn't lump that into your service fee because you don't necessarily need that office space to deliver the value to your client. So that would be an overhead cost that you have as the business owner, but it's not an expense that you need to include when determining like how profitable your offer is. So one of the things that we were actually talking about was like I do interviews and I use Riverside to do those interviews. So
Mhm.
the thing that made the most sense in my mind was like, well, that's an expense because I use that software to do the interviews, and when I'm delivering the value for the client, part of that is the interview. My partner disagreed because he was like, we pay for Riverside already, regardless of whether we have one client or whether we have 30. So that's not something that every time we take on a new client, that expense goes up. Because, like, if you take on a client and it costs you something to take on that client, then it makes sense that that would be an expense. So we were going back and forth on Riverside specifically. And it just
Mhm.
got me thinking, like, I think this is something that people don't think about until they're in this position that they're trying to determine how profitable their offer is. And they're like, well, what is the difference? Why does this matter? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I got a few things to say about that actually. I also had a mentor, um, and his main thing, big part of his brand, big part of his offer was to help you charge more. And yeah, so he was all about like high ticket, like running a high ticket agency and that, right? But something that he told me once, because we were actually looking at my expenses and overhead costs, right? So we were looking at that because I told him, I'm like, dude, I feel like I'm spending so much money right now, like because was probably spending more money than I'd ever spent on a monthly basis ever because I was also paying for his coaching. um, but we sat down and we actually like went through it. I had like a whole like Excel spreadsheet and all this, right? And something he did explain, he's like, it's like the good thing is that as you continue to stack clients, these some of these like these SaaS tools that you're paying for, like let's say you're paying for Zoom or there's the cheaper ones, then there's stuff like Zoom where when it renews like annually, especially if you've got like multiple seats in this, it's like $400 or so. It hits a little bit harder and stuff, right? But he was just explaining that like the good thing is that as you're stacking clients, these a lot of these SaaS tools do not automatically like go up in price. Of course, like there are other ones where they do. So I think like one of the differences of what you're explaining there is there are some SaaS tools where it's like when you add a client, you have to go and actually get like an additional seat for them. Um, and that would be something that's an actual like then business expense for that particular client versus an overhead expense of your overall business, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, another thing too is like I don't know, quad could be kind of expensive. For example, like I started like maxing out my own quad usage, and I had to like upgrade it further at one point. So I could imagine if you're a ghostwriter and you're using something like that where it has some sort of credit limits, then it's probably going to cost you more. I also subscribe for Riverside and Adobe or Premiere, that the whole Creative Cloud suite, and all that's kind of just like I just look at that as kind of like a fixed expense. But some of the other ones where there's like usage limits, I could definitely see that adding up pretty quickly if like you're using it a shit ton of times.
Yeah, I
yeah.
think that's kind of what we landed on as well, is that like if it's something that you're already using regardless of whether or not you bring on this client, then it makes sense that you would just consider an overhead expense. And even that alone, like it's good to like evaluate that in your own business, because that's how, before we got on live, we were talking about like low profit margins. And I think that's where people can get into those situations where they're like, why do I feel like my business is growing, but I'm not making more money? You can really kind of lose track of like the things that you're paying for that you maybe thought were necessary. But then when you evaluate them, you're like, oh, maybe this isn't. And you can really kind of play with your profit margins. So it's an interesting thing to evaluate in your own business. Like, okay, this is my offer. What are the things that I pay for that I really need to deliver this offer? And what ones grow with the more clients I get? Like, what expenses do I incur with a new client versus what am I already paying for, regardless of whether I take on this client? So that's kind of what I've been playing with in my offer.
Yep. One of the times when I was at my like highest revenue months is when I was paying for the most coaching, unfortunately, and I was paying like well, $4,000 a month for coaching. So yeah, um, and maybe that's it. It's not a coincidence, maybe that's why I was doing so well at the time, right?
Mm.
But yeah, that would be more like an overhead cost.
I have a question. What were you getting coached on?
It was that guy. It was like to charge more essentially. Now that sounds like way too oversimplified, but like the inner workings of how to charge more, how to like position your offer. Yeah, so he was big on positioning, very big on sales, very big on lead generation. Sales was a huge part of it, right? Because how do you demand those higher rates, right? Like, how do you get on a call and position yourself in a way where somebody hears like $5,000 a month and and actually understands the value of it, right? So yeah,
Interesting.
I hear a lot of coaches too. They say like the number out loud a few times in your head so you get it like right or whatever, just so your nervous system gets comfortable with the number. I almost feel like it's a lot to do with discovery too, finding out like what is like one sale worth to them. Like if they get one sale, is it worth like 100 grand? It's worth $1 million. What is that worth? And if you could find that somehow and then tie it back, that I think that always is like the best case scenario. But I need to get better at qualifying myself. I feel like because I feel like the qualification process is like the fastest way, I think, to find out whether or not someone will be a fit or a problem.
Yeah, the very first like online business I did was digital marketing for local businesses, and one of the things that I learned that I still think serves me to this day is basically doing what you just said, Jer, they called it like a client qualification interview. So it's like that first conversation where you're asking them questions like, what is an average customer worth to you? Like, and it kind of lets you do the math in your head of like, okay, if my offer is 2 grand and this person says that their average client is 1,000, well, okay, if I get them, 2 clients this month, then that will make it a lot more of a no brainer for them to want to do it with me next month. And I've had clients that it went a long way, me actually showing them that math, which when you're doing ads and stuff is a lot easier to do because you can track everything. But I would basically be like, okay, so these are, the customers we brought you this month based on what you told us. Your average customer is worth around this. So we made you anywhere, probably like in this range. And when they see that math and they actually see like the dollar value, that's what would always make it a no brainer for them to be like, this is great. Let's go again.
yeah, and you would almost think that wouldn't work so well because you might think to yourself, well, this is a smart business person. Obviously, they're obviously already thinking this, but until you actually say it and you actually say something like, yeah, so we would only have to get you if the person charges like $3,000 for every new client, it's like, so we would only have to get you like two clients or to completely cover the price for the services, right? And then when you actually say that, then they actually, it's tough to actually argue at that point, I guess.
Mhm.
But interestingly, I don't do that enough on sales calls. I've definitely heard people do that, but yeah,
What are your guys' thoughts? Like, I would offer like a free video initially, and I'm actually thinking about removing that from my process and testing it out, just trying to get sales calls without that. Because I do feel like it attracts like tire kicker people and like the wrong type of people that just want something for free. I was just wondering like what your guys' thoughts are on something like that. Like, do you think that that's a bad idea? I think anything obviously is a test, and you test something, see if it works, and whether or not like you get some results for it. But thoughts on that on your guys' end?
That's really interesting because my partner and I were talking about this today. Um, because there's two sides of it, and I think the way that we were talking about it today was like me doing the interviews with people I've been doing, like thus far they've all been for free. Yeah, on the one hand, you could look at it as like, well, that's a lot of time I'm giving away. Like I do 90-minute interviews with people sometimes.
Mhm.
But at the same time, because of that, because I'm giving more of my time, I am immediately more selective of who I'll interview. So like there's kind of certain things I look for. Like I want somebody who looks like they know what their thing is. Like they know what their offer is, they know what their service is, they know who they serve. They have some kind of sales process already. They're already like making money. Doesn't necessarily have to be like they need to be at 20K a month, but I want somebody who seems like they more or less have their shit figured out. Um, and doing that interview with them, I get a really good sense of like if this is somebody I would want to work with, like if this is somebody I'd want to offer this to. My partner said this morning, he phrased it like really eloquently. He was like, "We're kind of like trying to find people we want to dance with, you know." So if in that 30-minute interview you do with them, you probably meet some people that you're like, "I would not want to take this person on as a client." And I think doing it that way, yeah, you can look at it as like, well, this is a lot of my time I'm giving away. But it could also be saving you time because if you have like an amazing 30 minutes with somebody and you like genuinely want to work with them and you're like, I have like 7 reasons why I want to work with you, you're a lot more likely to get that person as a client because they've spent 30 minutes with you. You can speak directly to them and be like, this is what I really like. This is why I think I could do a good job for you. So it could also put you in the position where you maybe have to do less prospecting because it's higher quality prospecting.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think offering the free video, right? You can still be very selective as to who you even, well, you're doing cold outreach, right?
Yeah.
And of course you put out content too. And I guess sometimes you talk about the free video offer, right? But
Yeah.
you don't have to follow through with it with every prospect. And then if it's only half an hour, like, um, yeah, you're gonna be able to tell would this person be a good client. And I think that I think because your offer, like I know you both are basically doing this. It's like this technically saves you a lot of time and money too. Having this offer that's like kind of like lead magnet. Because what's the alternative? Like, how do you entice these people to get on a sales call otherwise, right? Or if you were like running ads or something like this, how much would that cost in comparison to just offering a free video, half an hour of your time? So I think it's a no brainer. I think it's a very good idea.
It's interesting though too because I feel I had 3 of them this week, and uh, I feel like I get better at my job by meeting new people and putting myself in stressful situations. It's almost like a stress test on myself to see if I can handle it as well. So I think that that part of it, and if you can get like a review out of it too, then I think it makes even more sense. So yeah, it's really interesting that I agree with what both of you guys are saying there. But I have a client right now actually that's super like nitpicky, like super OCD that I'm trying to launch a podcast with, and he went from going like wanting video to audio because he didn't like the way he looked, and then all of a sudden like he's not liking all these fonts. So he just has like major OCD. So like I'm getting to the point too where you could tell like right away, like I'm already like seeing like major red flags. So it's interesting, like, and I also feel like sometimes like it's like, do we fire these people like and just get them out like right away, or do you continue to kind of try to deal with people like that, I suppose. But I think that the free lead magnet is a good way. Like Kelsey and her partner were saying, let them dance, like see, like interview them, see if you vibe, and if you vibe or not, and they don't have too many like OCD characteristics and you feel like they're going to be easy to work with, then it's probably like a nice way to have like a small working relationship.
Yeah, I think it just goes back to what we were saying before that like you doing those free interviews kind of gives you a sense of like who's going to be a good fit for you. And we were talking, I think last week or the week before about like, doing editing. And like I think we both said like neither of us are trying to do videos that like are heavily edited with like B-roll graphics, all this flashy stuff because it's just not the content that we want to make. So if you got a client that was like, "Oh, well, I expect that. Like, I want the super heavy edited content," then like, okay, cool. Like, you have an option then of bringing somebody in to include that in your offer as an upsell when people want that, or you have the option of being like, "Yeah, you should probably find somebody else then because it's not the service that I provide." Um, Sometimes I find people are nitpicky at the beginning of the relationship just because they're still like getting comfortable and they're like kind of trying to make sure like is this guy does he really have my best interest? Like, is he gonna be awesome to work with? But there's just probably a conversation there that needs to happen. Like, okay, so what exactly is your concern with the content? Do you feel like the editing, like, misrepresents you and you don't feel like it's, aligned with your brand? Or is there like, you wanna kinda, like, dig into what the actual concern is there because he probably just wants to be heard. So, I found that with nitpicky clients, like, there definitely are just people that wanna micromanage you and, you can usually sniff that out, but there usually is just some kinda concern that you just need to address with them.
Yeah. Thoughts on that, Mike?
I had somebody in early 2025 who was like a prospect who was kind of on the fence about moving forward. And he actually said at a certain point, he's like, can we do the ghostwriting interview call? I want to see what that is gonna like look like and stuff. It's kind of like there was hesitation from both sides. Now, like obviously in the beginning, I was going in like hoping that he would close, right? Obviously running a business, want to make money, right? But then as once we did the ghostwriting interview call, I after that interview call, I was kind of like, I hope he doesn't sign. But during the sales call, like he said, let's do the interview call. And he's like, I'll pay you for it. Right. So I'm like, yeah, okay, sounds good. So came up with a link for him, like created a link for him. So like $250 for the interview call. And yeah, but after the interview, I thought to myself, I hope that guy doesn't move forward. And I'm not really gonna follow up with him too much because I think that he would be a nightmare client because he was just he was so high maintenance and so kind of nitpicky even before getting into the process. And I'm like, this guy is he's going to derail my process. He's going to want it like his way. And he's going to think that he knows what the content plan should be and stuff. But like, I could tell at the same time that he really doesn't know what works from a content perspective, but kind of wants to think he does, but at the same time wants to hire a ghostwriter. So I was able to spot that he'd be a problematic client right from the beginning. So yeah, coming back to like your free video, I think it solves multiple problems at once.
Yeah, it's
It's like a
smart.
qualification thing too.
Yeah, it's interesting too because I've kind of come to the realization too that B-roll and like higher production value, I think that's usually CEOs that don't have a good story to tell or they're not focused on an authentic narrative and they think that putting more polish is going to help their story. And I think that actually a lot of people are fatigued by a lot of this, like these flashy animations, because a lot of them look the same anyways. They look like people are using like the same graphics of and to some sort of degree, they look cool, but I also feel like, do they really add? And I think that certain generations like it more than others. Like boomers, I don't think like it, but like Gen Z might like that more because they're like, they're more native to the internet. So I also just feel like kind of just depends. And maybe it's something that like these people think that they need that they actually don't. Like at the end of the day, like story mechanics, stakes, and like all those things are going to be more important, I think.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I just think that I'm trying to build my offer and I want to make Inspired Idiot something really cool and I want to get better at interviewing. And the kind of content that I like putting out is more like raw and not heavily edited. And I've actually had like a few people say that they like that about it, like, because then they feel like they're actually there for the conversation when it's not just like, segments with big gaps in between. Um, so if that's aligned with the kind of content that I want to put out, then like I don't really want to promise clients that I'll do really heavily edited content because I agree with what you said. Like more edits doesn't necessarily mean better content. And when I look at like content that I like to watch, creators I want to emulate, like Diary of a CEO or Chris Williamson, when I look, or like even like Joe Rogan, when I look at the clips they put out, they're just the conversation usually. Their Diary of a CEO definitely has some content that is a lot more like graphics heavy. But usually when I'm watching clips, it's just people talking, making their point. It's usually like just that person. Yeah, there's some like trims in between, but it's not heavily edited. Um, so yeah, I think in that case it would just be like, yeah, this I'm probably not the service provider for you if that's the kind of content that you want. But I think you're right, Jared, that you could probably again dig into like why do they think they want that content? Like, do they have this perception that more edited equals better content? Because there's something to kind of peel back there. I think when this is all part of like what you kind of get to know in terms of like when you do a free call with somebody and you're trying to suss out, is this somebody I want to work with? Is like seeing if like you're, I guess for lack of a better word, like you're aligned on like what you're trying to do, what they think they want out of content. Um, yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't have too much to add to that. Some of the clients who are seeing those more produced videos, it might be because they're seeing it from larger creators who have like massive budget. Of course, it goes both ways because you talked about Diary of a CEO. You also talked about Joe Rogan, right? Those are good examples where it's just raw, unfiltered, minimal editing. Um, but yeah, then there's other examples like I was talking about on the last call, that guy Brad Lee, where when I think about it, yeah, he's got like very like produced short form video clips with the overlays and all that stuff. So some people are probably seeing those examples and seeing that they need or thinking that they need to be like that, you know?
One first creator that stands out to me too, and I think his content is amazing, Lewis Butterfield. But his stuff is not like highly like flashy. It's more like his personality is just fucking hilarious, and he somehow uses like this like kind of like I don't know how he's almost like a performer. I know that he was a musician, like the front man for a band. So I think that he naturally has that charisma and he's able to like kind of make things like have he has a sort of pace to his videos where it feels like frantic a lot of the times that I don't think that a lot of I couldn't emulate that. Like that's just not who I'm not a natural performer like him. Like so like it's like hard. So that's the other thing that's interesting too is like not everyone could be in their certain slots. Like no one not everyone could be like a Lewis Butterfield, for example. But props to him though. I think his content's fucking hilarious and it's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's got like
Mhm.
it's got hard cuts and stuff, right? But it's not like overly produced, right?
Right.
And it's scripted, but it feels natural,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
totally.
Have you seen his videos? Have you seen his no, pardon me, his music videos more recently on LinkedIn?
I have not. No. Oh wait, the ones where he's like
Okay.
dancing like as like women and like there's like ones like that where he's like dressed up as a chick and he's like dancing.
Yeah.
And it's funny too because he's
He
like this was a pattern interrupt. I was like, the fuck?
Yeah, he's like, I think they're pulling a lot from like his girlfriend I don't know if it's his girlfriend or wife, like her DMs, because she's received certain DMs from from guys and stuff, right? And like they'll take some of these DMs where this dude is trying to like hit on her in a really cringy way, and they'll turn it into a music video.
That's
You guys haven't
hilarious.
been seeing this?
I saw something where she was like pooping her
They're
pants or
hilarious.
something like that. He kept on bringing up this like pooping the pants. I don't know. She's like Jen poops her pants. It's like a running joke. It seems like with them.
Yeah. Yeah, she's been using that in some of her hooks. That's what that's about. But the music videos, you got to check that out. Like it's probably the funniest thing I've ever seen on LinkedIn. which I mean,
I
like the bar is pretty low on LinkedIn for actual funny content, but yeah,
That's funny
I,
that I've seen him on LinkedIn, and it's hilarious that he puts that content on LinkedIn because of the platform that LinkedIn is. So that's hilarious.
Yeah, it's such a good way to stand out and I think show personality. Again, like I don't think that everyone could do it. I couldn't pull it off. I actually saw someone impersonate him from like a different country, and the person did a really good job of like somehow making that frantic kind of pacing and like, hey, I'm like all that, or whatever. And it worked really well, but it was just really odd seeing someone else try to like do it, like impersonate him.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
yeah.
So
I went on LinkedIn today and I actually had this like overwhelming feeling of like, man, this is so fucking boring now
Yeah.
to me. Like I was scanning the timeline a bit. And I'm like, it's crazy because now there's so many people talking about like AI in like multiple different ways. I mean, shit, I do it too, but the only difference is I feel like I was talking about AI in a critical way because like back like earlier in like even like 2024 and stuff, and I didn't see anybody doing it then, right? I felt like my takes on it were more unique and stuff. And now it seems that everything has kind of come full circle, and now I do see people actually talking about it in more of a critical way, which is good to see. But now I just see everybody jumping on the bandwagon because now it's like an acceptable subject to talk about.
It seems like LinkedIn is really slow too lately. It seems like my posts are not being distributed really at all. It seems like I don't know. I'm not complaining about like the algorithm or anything, but it just seems like they made the algorithm tighter or harder. Obviously, it gets harder probably every year, but it seems like even a lot harder than even like 6 months ago.
you know what's funny is like since we've been doing these lives together, which has been like a month now or something, I've it's given me a lot of like additional clips to post on social media. So I've just been kind of like I've been posting like twice a day recently just because I have the content too. Like usually when we do one of these talks, I end up getting like at least 10 clips out of it that I'm like, "Oh, that's a good clip. Oh, that's a good clip." And so I've just been dispersing those across YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook because I can auto post or I can schedule those. And the content's doing by far the best on LinkedIn. Like I
Interesting.
messaged both you guys this that in the last week I haven't checked today, but it was like probably over 30,000 impressions now, which
Oh
is not
shit,
like
that's a lot.
insane, but for content that I'm just like repurposing that's coming from these interviews that we're already doing, I'm like, "Oh shit." Like
It
this I'm
actually
not on there commenting every day. I'm not like I'm just like kind of spraying and praying basically. And it's interesting that it's doing the best on LinkedIn because the clips are getting like fucking nothing on my YouTube, which is interesting because I know some of them do well on yours, Jer. But on
yeah.
LinkedIn, the engagement's quite low. Like I don't get more than like 20 engagements on a post, but I mean 30K impressions in a week from content that I didn't really have to think about is kind of cool.
Proves the interview model actually of like what we're doing and like interviewing and then using that to spread across different platforms. It's
I
interesting because when I
already
first
made a post about that.
What's when I first got on YouTube, I don't know, a couple years ago, I was really never consistent. Like first couple YouTube shorts all got like around like a couple thousand views, and then it kind of like tapered off after a while. I actually made a short this week. I haven't done one for a while, like with just myself, and it only had like 20 views, which was kind of like disappointing. But like, when that happens though, and you're like, oh fuck, like, did I do something wrong, or is like, I don't know. I think at the end of the day too, it's just like just getting back into the game of getting consistent because I find it much easier to have a conversation with you guys and get clips and than like turn on the phone and like trying to like spit out some bullshit or whatever. It's a lot harder. I don't use scripts anymore. I kind of just use story beats. Like I'll kind of come up with a hook and I'll try to connect the different beats together and then kind of just riff and get it done or whatever. But I need to take my own medicine and or take my own advice and start getting on video more because I think it's just good practice. And just even with like the YouTube thing, just throwing it on the shorts, seeing if they like resonate, and maybe if that works well, then taking that, the ones that work well, and then putting it on LinkedIn.
You should do more of that, actually. I don't think I've ever, well, I don't see a lot of videos from you where it's just you on camera, like just, like cracking into a story and doing that. You should do that. I could see that being working well for you, you know?
Yeah, it's good practice too. I feel like I don't know, it's because I'm the one that's preaching to everyone to get on camera, but not really getting on camera that much myself, which is kind of ironic.
Well, I think us doing these lives is kind of you doing that. Like,
Yeah,
because I've thought about this too, but like part of what's in the last week, I've been like really like kind of carving out the messaging around my offer and like who is it for and like what do I want to speak to. And a thing that keeps coming up for me is like I think this style of content creation that we do is for people who like don't want to be scripted and don't necessarily want to like do talking head style videos where they're just like talking into their camera. Like they do have things they want to say and they have stories to tell and they are interested in making content and getting it out there, but they don't want to make that style of content. That's why I think like people are much more likely to say yes to like being interviewed or going on a podcast because they're like, "Oh, sweet, I'm going to get content out of it that like I don't have to feel awkward making." So
yeah,
if that's like that's the way that I think about it is like when we do these live calls, it does kind of show that like I'm putting my money where my mouth is because I'm getting on camera and I'm
yeah,
answering questions and we do it live, which is like even more pressure. So I
yeah,
think it's like it's showing that you stand by what you offer to your clients, and that you're willing to get on camera yourself and like be questioned and make content from it. Because then it's kind of proving, like for me in my case, it's proving the bottom line of my point. And this is like I said, I got almost 30K impressions. I made a post out of that that's going to go up next week and be like, hey, I got 30,000 impressions last week on LinkedIn just from sharing clips of what I'm already doing.
that's powerful.
That's what I'm building my interview around, is that, like, you don't have to make content be this thing that you have to, like, add to your plate every month. It can just be a natural extraction of what you're already doing in your business.
Yeah,
I'm gonna drop something I think is kind of valuable for both of you. Like it almost makes me wish I was running the same offer, and maybe one day I will. But
yeah,
I think it also appeals to the people who are pretty like anti like so the same like overproduced type of content, right? Like so if you're against like overproduced content, you're probably also against the whole like AI slop movement. So the same people who don't want that overproduced type feel with like with videos and stuff would also kind of be anti AI slop. And really it's kind of like your positioning helps them to show that they're a real human in this age where like everything is just moving towards like was this even written by a human, is or like a couple years from now it'll be like is that even the actual like
person.
real human on video there, right?
It's already
So
there.
yeah, we already are there. Like not everybody, obviously not everybody's making like uh AI avatars of themselves they're like running video like scripts on video. But yeah, like can you do that? Yeah, you already can do that. So the but the that less produced approach, I think well, it speaks to more of those people who'd be like anti AI, anti overproduced content, and having like like a human interview as well makes it all that more like real as well. So
Yeah, and even from our own experience, I mean, we've had such good experiences. We've gone all of us have gone live so many times together, and 99% of the time, it's gone really smooth. But when it did get fucked up, it is stressful. Like last week, my phone overheated, the algorithm or the thing wasn't letting us log on, it was kicking us off. So you could tell why like people are scared of live because the shit when it does go wrong, it's like completely shit does not work at all. So I think that part of it, it was like last week was like an interesting experience when that happened. So you could see why people record calls and then publish it later because it's more stressful. I mean, I think it's way more fun, the live environment when it's actually happening because you can see the comments, you can see who's on there, and then we still get the clips anyways. But it is kind of more it leads to better conversations, I feel like too.
yeah, I've
Yeah.
had a 10-minute video, a 10-minute long video as my, you know, pinned post on my Substack all week because I actually didn't write a newsletter this week. I don't know what happened. The week just got away from me, so I've had that same 10-minute video from our live from last week, just 10 minutes. And actually, it's still getting some like engagement and stuff, right? Just this little 10-minute video. But yeah, last week was a disaster,
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
it
from a
happens.
technical standpoint.
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it happens. I think that we kind of have to just laugh about it and roll. But I mean, this time I made sure that for anyone that's using Substack, remove your phone case, don't charge it while it's charging. So it's just physics and some thermal. Like, a phone can only take so much heat, apparently. So
Mhm.
maybe Substack, please make this thing on desktop eventually. I know that they
Uh,
did and they didn't, and then
yeah,
they took it away, it sounds like. So
yeah. I would love that. But yeah, I think going back to what you said, Mike, that is definitely part of like what I've been kind of including in the messaging around this is that like this is for people that have an interest in making content, but they want to show up like as a real human, in a world of like AI content. Because I think like something that kind of came to me when I was like brainstorming, like, why is this the way I want to do this? Why do I think this is going to work? Why do I think this will be valuable for people? It's it's kind of about like it's not just about making content. It's about like making connection and like showing up in an authentic way, putting out content that authentically represents you so that you can actually connect with the people that you're trying to reach with it. So I think you're right, Mike. It is kind of for the people that are, anti overproduced content, anti AI slop content. They want to put stuff out there that they feel is just them in their, real raw human form. Because they want to actually connect with people. They don't care about like, well, I just want more views. Yeah, sure, but behind that is probably because you wanna reach more of the people you're trying to reach, and I think the best way to do that is to put out content that those people actually connect to in some way.
Let me, yeah, like first of all, 100% agree with that. But let me run something by you guys. I put out this post, and I posted it on Substack and then also on LinkedIn, right? And two slightly different variations, but it's basically like creative people have a love-hate relationship with AI. They love that it speeds up tedious work. They hate that it makes copying their ideas effortless. And in the LinkedIn version, I added on, there's a kid out there right now copy pasting your top 10 LinkedIn posts into ChatGPT saying, rank these and replicate 50 variations. It's never been easier to plagiarize. So obviously, this is polarizing. It's kind of contrarian because everybody just like loves AI, but this is actually 100% how I feel. Like, do I use AI? Yes. Yeah, sometimes I do, but I use it like the thing that kind of like inspired me to write this was the other day. I was actually on a coaching call. Uh, I won't say the program, but a certain individual said in like the chat on this Zoom call, I have a swipe file with like 1,300 top performing posts or something like this in a swipe file. And it's like, I'm thinking to myself, and I said this to my brother like a couple weeks back. I'm like, I miss the days when engineers couldn't write their own social media posts. Um, and what I mean by that is like days when more logic brained people who are not really that creative kind of couldn't produce their own content. Not because like I want them to be like limited in what they can do, but it's like we've entered this like age where people actually think it's okay to like go to someone's social media page and like rip their posts, rip their content, run it through ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, and make variations of it because it was a top performing idea, and then just basically claim it as their own. And like for actual creative people, I think that for actual creative people, you look at AI and you look at how AI has made it like easier for other people to basically copy your stuff. I don't think that there's many truly creative people who are like 100% pro AI. What do you guys think about that?
I thought it was really interesting. I think that it's kind of lame that people just do that and get variations and actually use it. But one thing that I would think about though is that the people that are probably doing that probably don't have your results, so they're going to sound like fake. and hollow because they haven't actually had the lived experience. So I think that unless you're actually an operator and you're trying to, I could tell right away whether or not someone's closing business or not, or if they're just someone full of shit, just posting shit on the timeline. Because there's no substance a lot of the time when they're not talking numbers, they're not talking about conversations they had, deals they closed. So I think if it's lacking the actual revenue metrics and the actual business like fundamentals, I could see through it right away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think this is what people mean when they say like, oh, there's so many gurus online, because there's a lot of people online that will like hear wise things and then just repeat it as though it's like, I thought of this. But then, sometimes you see those and you're like, yeah, I like that message, but I know you didn't come up with that. I've heard that before, kind of thing. So I think that's where the term like online gurus come from. Is it is really easy to kind of copy other people's content and say it in your own way and make yourself sound really smart without ever actually like having that authority to be giving people advice. But I think that's where, like you said, Jared, that's where like authority content comes in, and like sharing testimonials of what you've done or what you're doing or like how you learned that lesson. I think that's where it comes back to like borrowing authority is kind of an art if you want to do it in a tasteful way, where like you're taking something that somebody else said and you're crediting them for saying it, but you're bringing it into like, here's what I have to say about it, or here's my experience with that or something. I think that's where I learned writing through a journalism lens. Like I was a freelance writer for the local newspaper, and that was like the start of my writing career was like writing for other outlets. So I always kind of looked at things through a journalism lens of like plagiarism gets me fired. Like copying other people's work without crediting it usually gets me an F on an assignment. So I feel like I still try to look at writing through that, and that's not to say that I haven't ever posted things that, weren't my original words. I definitely have. But I think you're right, Mike. Like AI makes it really easy to copy. And the people who just straight up copy other people's stuff without ever putting their own experience or their own spin on it are just kind of probably copying just for the sake of seeing those numbers. But that's also why like I really love interviewing. Like I love interviewing people that I think are smarter than me, because then I get those sound bites of them saying something cool that I can just throw up, and that way like I'm still crediting the person. It's clearly them saying it, but it almost is in a way like borrowed authority. I think that's why content from big podcasts work really well, because you get somebody on your show that can like talk about their thing with passion and they can say interesting things, and then you get to post those sound bites and almost like it is your content, so you're almost like owning it, but you're still like giving that person credit for the smart things they say. That's part of why I really like interviewing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like story is kind of one of the only things that actually separates like the real from the fake, because it is true. You can't really fake a story, right? Somebody can't be like, oh yeah, I have like this experience, this prior experience, and that's the part they can't replicate. So
Mhm.
but that's kind of it's coming down to, that's one of the few things that's actually kind of untouchable. Like you can't word for word copy somebody's story. You'd have to insert your own things, your own specificity in there. And aside from like that in video, like those are some of the only things I can think of that kind of aren't copyable.
Well, that's the other thing too, is because it's a lot easier to like write a post and perfect it using Claude and then ship it. Whereas like it's harder to defend on video because if someone's like got a conscience and they have any sort of character, they're going to know that they're lying if they didn't actually live that experience. And a
Yeah.
lot of the things too that I catch myself too is like sometimes I'm writing and I'm like writing, sometimes it'll be like you instead of I. And I try to go back to like I and not you because it feels like I'm talking down to people when I'm saying you s- to some sort of degree. Like I have all the answers when in reality, I'm just, it's better to, I feel like, talk from my own experience.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like both.
100%.
I like when you like flip back and forth between like I and then like you and your, right? Like I, my, me, and then like you and your, like interchangeably, even within one post, you know?
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think, yeah, I mean, it goes back to something we've said on other calls is that, like, people need different messengers for the same message, and people are gonna relate to your story and the way you explain things and your take on things. So, I think having that kind of storytelling content or have people, like, talking about their experiences, things they've learned, people they've helped, like, that's the kind of content that nobody can replicate from you because it's your story. So that's kind of the best way I think to approach content is from that, like, how I perspective, and then you can share, like, the big takeaways you've taken from it. I definitely do the same thing, Mike. I kinda switch back and forth between, like, I always wanted to be clear that I'm sharing my experiences, and so, like, this is my experience, this is what I learned, but there's definitely things you learn along the way that you're like, "I believe everybody should know this." And sometimes in my writing, when I say things like, you just need to or you should, it's often like the way I'm thinking about it is like, this is me like talking to my old self, you know?
Mm, that's fair.
There's definitely room to speak like, yeah, like to the reader with like you and your in this, but I was just thinking like I'm thinking of one a particular creator, right? I've seen him on Twitter, Substack, all around really, and he he pretty much only speaks from a universal standpoint. Like it's all just like you need to do this. People don't care about you, they care about themselves. First you learn, then you like, it's just all that. And I think if you see that, that's a major red flag because the guy never speaks from his own perspective. He's never speaking like, I remember, 5 years ago when I did this. It's no content like that. So yeah, when you see that, it raises a red flag. This guy's probably just he's just copying other people's posts.
So how do you
I
guys,
think
when you're
when
using, sorry, when you're using the you language, how do you know like that you're not talking down on someone? Do you guys know if like it feels like you're talking down to someone or it feels like you're lecturing? Because I try to like sometimes when I look at it, I'm like it feels like I'm lecturing sometimes when I say you, and I think there's probably an art to it.
the way that I see it is like I really only feel comfortable doing it when it's something that I feel like I have a lot of fucking conviction in. So, like, I'm not gonna make content about how to make a fuck ton of money and be using "you should" language because I don't feel conviction in that. Like, I'm very proud of where I am and how far I've come, but, like, I'm not gonna make content about something that I feel like I'm still figuring out and then
Hmm.
use "you should" language. But if I write an article about, like, changing your life by changing your mind or overcoming an eating disorder or like, just anything like, I'm super passionate about, like, mindset and learning how to, like, shift the way you look at things to get the result you wanna get, and when I talk about subjects like that, I do often use, like, "you" language because I feel a lot of conviction what I'm saying, and I the way that I kinda think about it is, like, when I'm using "you should" language versus how I language, I'm, like, taking a stance. I'm like, I'm willing for somebody to argue me on this because I know I'll stand on this hill. Where I use how I content or how I wording is stuff that I'm like, I'm still figuring this out. So, like, if somebody came at me and was arguing with me here, there's a very good chance I'm wrong because I don't fucking know. This is just what I've done. So that's kinda how I think about it. If I'm not willing to, like, argue that point, I don't have, like, real conviction in it, I'm probably not gonna use "you should" language.
Yeah, I think just generally speaking, if if you've actually accomplished it, you're pretty you're just safe, and you don't really then have to like worry too much about whether you're speaking from the I perspective or like you and your, and you can kind of just flow with it. But yeah, you get into more dangerous territory when you're talking about, yeah, like even when you're talking about stuff where it's like, you hit $20,000 a month like once or something like this, and then you're talking about like how to hit $20,000 a month. Well, okay, maybe you can speak on that, but like, you know, um, better that you talk about how it was only once But can you talk about how to help people get to 5K per month, 10K per month? Yeah, like that's very much within your wheelhouse because it's like you've hit 20K, right? So, yeah, yeah, I'm always careful with that. I feel like I have a pretty good natural feel for like not stepping into territory where I don't really have like actual authority.
It seems too that like the authority gets stronger too. Like once you do hit those results, like you hit like I don't know 10K, 20K, 30K, 40, whatever it is. It seems like it's almost like it compounds on itself somehow. Like people just want to be a part of that more, and they're like more willing somehow to like it somehow like works in your favor the more successful you become. I've realized.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think the simple way to think about it is like people like if people relate to you and they like your voice or your story or they just generally enjoy your content and then they also see you like winning and like making shit happen and it seems like you're gaining momentum, they're all the more likely to want to like be on that journey with you. Like I think I've said this to you guys before, but like an analogy that for whatever reason just makes a lot of sense to me is that like when you're kind of on your journey, you're gonna meet or I've found that like there's kind of two types of people. There's like people that are digging holes and then there's people that are like building piles. So everybody's got their life, everybody's got a shovel, everybody's got, you know, resources around them. And some people are just like stacking their pile and they're trying to climb higher, and they're trying to like find other people that are trying to, grow. So they like you want to find those people to kind of like lift each other up and be like, hey man, like let's combine our piles or like, like they're trying to go higher. There's also people that kind of just seem like they dig holes and like they just talk shit about other people. They blame life for their circumstances. They're just like negative to be around, and you'll feel when you're around those people because you'll feel like you're in the hole with them. So I think if you find people that are like, you
Draining.
you relate to them in some way, you see that like, oh man, he's building his pile. People want to align themselves with people like that. Like not only people that seem like they're winning, but just people who seem like they're fucking trying. And if you relate to their story or like their values or the way they approach business on top of that, it's pretty unlikely that you're not going to want to like stick around that person.
Yeah, there's something called like the crab in the bucket. I don't know if you guys have heard this, where like crabs are trying to crawl out of the bucket, and then like the other crabs are tearing off their legs as they're crawling up. I don't those types of people I don't hang out with. I hang out with people like you guys that are positive, that are trying to rising tide lifts all boats type of people, because at the end of the day, like I don't have time for people's drama, and I'd rather be around positive people, can do people that get shit done and that are not focused so much on like hating on other people. They're there to like lift other people up and to lift themselves up, because I don't have time to go hate on people. It's like a waste of energy. I don't understand like why anyone even does it to begin with. Obviously, probably because they're insecure or have a low self-esteem or whatever reason. And I think the trap is to actually engage with those people. I just unfollow them or block them or, just say kick rocks.
In my day-to-day life, I feel like I have zero negative people. The only way I come across a negative person is like if it's just some random out there in the world, or the biggest one, social media. You'll never find so many haters and trolls. In real life, it's so rare to actually find somebody who wants to talk shit. But
Sometimes you just have those people in your family or something and you kind of
mm,
have to navigate like,
mm.
okay, this person's in my life. I have a relationship with them. I don't see the world they do the way they do. So like that's a whole other thing to navigate. But I think that just comes back to the whole premise of like, don't take advice from people whose lives you don't want. Um, but I think it's yeah, like it's being positive for sure. But I think another thing for me is it's also finding people that you can tell are like legitimately committed to the journey. Because like I think we all connected initially in Dakota's ghostwriting program. And I think about like I joined that 2 Octobers ago. So it'll be coming up on 2 years now. And I've gone through periods where I would meet regularly with different people from that group. And everybody I've met has been awesome. I've never spent time with somebody that I was like, "Oh, that person kinda sucked," or they were negative. It's never been anything like that. But you definitely find that like some people are not as committed to what they're doing as you are. And I think that's become a really big thing for me is like, yes, I want to surround myself and give my time to people that are positive for sure. But I also want to find people that like aren't going to give up. And like when we say we're going to meet, they show up consistently because they're committed too. So I've experienced a little bit of that where like you meet people who are positive, but like I was meeting pretty regularly with somebody else from the program and we were just kind of like being each other's like accountability buddy, but they regularly would like not show up or they'd cancel last minute. And it got to the point that I often like expected they wouldn't show up. And so at some point I was like, I don't think that I want to like keep giving my time to this because it doesn't really seem like you're committed to this journey. And that person I don't even think is doing online business stuff anymore. So I think my spidey senses maybe were on point there. But it's the combo. It's like this person's positive, but they're also like fucking committed to their
Mm,
journey because that's motivating for me to be with people that I know are like not giving up.
yeah, definitely.
I think it's something about like transferring like mindset. I mean, I've learned a lot from both of you just on these calls because like you guys are all running your own experiments. I'm running my experience or my own experiments. And I think it's kind of just talking through it with you guys to see what your thoughts are to like because at the end of the day, like I get in my head all day and talk to Claude or whatever, but it's always better to talk to people that are doing something similar to you and to see what where their heads at, what do they think, poke holes in your ideas. Because at the end of the day, that's how you're gonna get sharper. Because if I'm only just doing stuff by myself, I'm not gonna learn as much.
Man, y- yeah. So I have a recent like kind of experience or story with that. I'm so here in Paraguay. I actually have a buddy who we've just met up again. He's here in the city and this and um he first time he came here, he actually didn't like it that much. I encouraged him. I'm like, I don't know, you might not have seen enough of it. You might not have like met people in this, but anyway, he's back again, and we met in Medellin for the first time like a couple years back. And he's from Growth Ghost as well. He actually didn't become a ghostwriter. He actually went on to become a remote closer. And this guy, one of the first questions he ever asked me before we really even knew each other, he said something like, Mike, I saw your video with or your interview with Dakota and this and that. I heard that you've had a lot of success in this program. I know your story and this and that. He's like, I just got to ask, like, is all of this really possible? And he was just talking about making money online and not, right? And as it has turned out, he's now in remote closing and he's doing like really well, like consistent, consistent months. Like he's doing like 14 or 15K per month, like every month. Right. And he's not even fully satisfied with that. Like he's actually, he's got his sights set a lot higher. Right. I told him, I'm like, 13, 14, 15K when you feel like you have a problem is a pretty good place to be in. So, um, but it's funny how it has all come full circle because as of right now, like he's doing like better than I am. And he, 2 years ago was asking me, Mike, is all of this really possible? And now here I am, and spending some time with him has kind of reminded me like, okay, dude, it's time to get this going again like you had it before, and like get back on the horse, get things to where they were. And it like immediately inspired me, like just even after the first day of us hanging out. And I kind of came up with a game plan of what I'm thinking about doing based on hanging out with that guy. And I know that it was like inspired and motivated from seeing where he's at. Because when you hear a guy talking about how he's at 13, 14, 15K a month and not happy with that, you remind yourself, like, well, I was there as well, and it's like, what happened? And then you're like, okay, I got to do something here, right? So,
One
yeah. Yeah, who you surround yourself with actually does have that effect, obviously.
one one thing that it reminded me of too is this idea that hedonistic treadmill. And I also want to be aware of this too, like where I'm like beating myself up for not being far. Well, if I'm like, if a year ago would look at me now, I would be stoked to see where I'm at. But like, I'm still not happy because that's just the way my brain works. So I'm not happy until like I'm like excelling to the nth degree. But I also want to be cognizant of like, oh, maybe if I never am satisfied in the moment, then like it's always like, oh, I'll only be happy when I get this or that or whatever. And I also find that to be a bit of a trap. So like, I don't know, like, it's just like our brains are fucked up. Like, I always have to remind myself, like, be happy where I'm at now and compare myself to my previous self, but also strive for more and more.
Yeah, it's not just you, it's definitely a thing. I did this online course from Yale called The Science of Happiness, and it was, like, just all about that, the science of happiness, and yeah, I think the hedonic treadmill or the hedonic whatever that word is, everybody has it. It's like, "I'll be happy when," and then you're so busy with life when that thing happens that you never actually take the time to, like, sit
Enjoy it.
there and actually practice being happy. I think one of the kind of, like, mindset tools that I try to practice often that makes a really big difference is just, like, sitting in silence and, like, practicing feeling the feeling that you think you're gonna feel when you hit that next big goal, because we often forget to, like, actually feel that when we hit our goals along the way. I don't even remember, like, the first time I hit 10K months, and that was, like I think that's, like, a big first goal for a lot of people is, like, consistent 10K months, and I never, like, stopped to, like, acknowledge or celebrate it because 'cause you're always just on to the next thing, and, like, you hit that next goal and that you told yourself you'd be happy when you hit, but then you hit it and you're busy thinking about, like, where you're trying to go next. So I think it's something that you have to, like, consciously make time to practice, to, like, stop and pause and be like, "Holy shit, I did that thing that used to be my goal." Um, I've kinda tried different things over the last few years to, like, practice that because I just don't ever wanna be that person that's, like, that never stops chasing. I think the pursuit is good, but I think if you're always telling yourself, "I'll be happy when," then you're never going to be happy because 'cause you're never giving yourself permission to actually have it.
Mhm.
Um, I actually have to hop off, guys, and it's probably gonna work good because my phone's
Yeah.
probably gonna die in the next 10 minutes, but I think you brought up something there, Mike, that I think could make for a good conversation, because you said, like, you wanna get back, and I think
Yeah.
that kinda comes back to one of the things that we were gonna talk about maybe was, like, prospecting and, like, getting your business to where you're trying to get it, and, like, what does that look like for people, and how many conversations do you try to have when you're trying to grow and get more clients? I think that could be a whole fucking live in itself. If you guys wanna
I'm
touch on that next week.
I'm down for that. Mike, you good at
For
that?
sure. Yeah,
Cool.
that sounds good. Yeah.
Are you guys same time next week good for you guys?
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Same time.
Right. Well, that was fun. I'm glad that we didn't have any tech issues this time, you guys, and thanks for everyone that was on the call with us. Appreciate you guys. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, this was
Awesome.
fun.
See you guys
See
next
you
week.
guys.
Bye.